Dan, you neglected to mention that again. Dan was a real hockey player. When we met with the Israeli team, I was one of these guys who was just desperately trying to hang on and play the game.
Hey everyone, another episode here of Ask the Expert, and today I've got my good friend Oded Orgil. We have known each other now coming up, I think, close to 30 years.
Close to 30 years.
Close to 30 years. We got together randomly through Israeli hockey, is that right? I think my mom found out that Israel had a hockey team and reached out to Oded, and we went 2 days later to, where did we go?
The first time I think was Belgium. It might have been Belgium.
No, it was Lithuania.
Oh, Lithuania. Okay, and then later I know we were in Belgium at one point with
Yeah,
the club team.
and then we did numerous trips over the years. This was in the late 90s, and I've been friends with Oded ever since. I believe when I was working at the exchange, Oded was with Merrill Lynch.
At that time, yeah.
With Merrill Lynch, and so he's been in the investment space, different functions for many, many years, and I thought he would be a great interview today to see what he's doing now, what his background was, how he got into some interesting things that he's doing now with Israeli companies. And so please welcome Oded. Oded, thanks for coming. Why don't you tell us how you kind of started? We met, you were just an investment advisor, I think, at Merrill.
Yeah.
And then you worked your way up to CEO. So why don't you give us a little background on your background?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me, Dan. Hopefully it'll be a lot of fun.
I hope so.
Dan, you neglected to mention that again. Dan was a real hockey player. When we met with the Israeli team, I was one of these guys who was just desperately trying to hang on and play the game. But yeah, it was a wonderful experience. So yeah, I started in the investment industry in 1994 as an advisor. Prior to that, I practiced law for a couple of years. So that gave me an understanding of contracts, some trusts, and a network of individuals that I could talk to. I spent the next 10 years as an advisor originally was a firm called Midland Walwyn, which got bought by Merrill Lynch, which got bought by CIBC Wood Gundy. And through that time in my 20s, had the great opportunity, like you, we played for the Israeli national team, which at the time was really getting better, which was a lot of fun. There were some players who were really good, and I went from being a top two defenseman to just one of the guys at the end of the bench. Right. So that was a lot of fun, as you said.
I think when I retired, we won the gold medal in the D pool.
No, I think it was the C pool. That was 2000. That was 2000, and they moved up
Iceland.
That was in Iceland. Yeah, and that was there were some really, really good hockey players on that team. Max Beerbreyer, remember? He got drafted in the third round by the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. So that's when I retired, 2000. That was my last trip.
Yeah.
Except for the recent one we did a couple of years ago.
Yeah. You could have played a little longer, but that was my last trip as well. So yeah, I continued to work in the investment industry through it all. In 2004, I sold my practice as an advisor, moved into full-time management, and spent some time with Canaccord, with HSBC, with Manulife Securities, and then my last, what I call gig on Bay Street, was as CEO of a boutique investment bank called Gravitas Securities. So I was there just under 3 years, and then in late 2017, my wife said it's time for me to get to know my kids. We have 5, and so I left Bay Street and set up a practice in North Toronto, where I worked, out of my office doing corporate advisory work, and managing some people's money on the side, as well as helping to do some financial planning. Wasn't sure really what I wanted to do, but just slowed down a little bit. But that's evolved over the last couple of years, as you mentioned, where more and more companies helping them raise capital, go public, do some corporate advisory. I've been believing that there's an interesting opportunity for Israeli companies to come to Canada for over 25 years. And I don't know, I'm sure you're aware that there's lots of Israeli companies on the American Stock Exchange, but they never wanted to come here, and there were a variety of different reasons why that happened.
So you went from basically managing money to to managing the people that manage money, then back to kind of boutique managing money for yourself and doing some insurance and family advisory to now, interestingly enough, because we've spent some time in Israel together. I remember a few years back where you were kind of laying the groundwork to what you're doing now. So why don't you explain what you're kind of doing now?
Yeah, so thanks. Yeah, it really has been a complete 180 degrees from managing with people to now working with companies. And so what we're doing now, my partner and I, we've created the beginnings of a platform to help these Israeli companies go public here in Canada, and also to work with the number of Israeli companies that are public in Canada. We believe it's a sector unto itself. Again, it doesn't fall into one area. It's not just cybersecurity, it's not just AI, it can cover food tech, agri-tech, water tech, you name it. So much is coming out of Israel. And so what we started with is just a website. And that website is investinisrael.ca, where we soft launched it with a couple companies that are on. One is public and one is about to go public in the next few months. We've got 2 more that are going to join in the next couple weeks. And there's about 25 Israeli companies that are public in Canada. Not all of them.
I would not have known that.
Funny you say that. That's what we believe, that this website is really an awareness campaign. That many people are aware of some of the interesting technologies that come out of Israel, but they're not aware that they're here in Canada, and there's not accessible to them, in the public markets.
For sure. So, correct me if I'm wrong, probably would have been tougher to do this 2-3 years ago. Tech companies were valued much higher. Everybody wants to go to the NASDAQ, thinks they have the greatest tech, and now there's a little bit more willing and able to look at other markets to raise capital.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's been a number of things that have come up over the last couple of years that have made this. I really believe now is the time. On the Israel side, up until the last 6 months, unfortunately, because of the war, venture capital has been plentiful in Israel. And so there was the opportunity for many companies, they would just get funded by a VC all the way up. In addition to that, the markets were far more buoyant up until about 1.5 or 2 years ago. So now, as you said, those Israeli companies are looking for other options. It's not always available in Israel. Everybody wants to go to the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. It's the exchange. But I think that now, as you said, they're open to looking at other places. They've tried Australia. They've tried London.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there have been opportunities in the past. But now I think that we're showing them that the ability to come to Canada, where there is an abundance of venture, of risk capital. People like junior stocks here in Canada.
Yes, I've been involved in one too many.
We all have. We've all got some scars that way.
Yes.
But historically, Canada's a great risk capital market. I mean, we know the mining industry very well. And in addition to that, we've got 3 really good exchanges. We've got the Toronto Stock Exchange and their venture arm. We've got the Canadian Securities Exchange, and there's also the Chicago Board of Equity Trade Canada, which was the NEO, is now another exchange. So there's 3 vibrant exchanges in Canada. And for those Israeli companies who are successful and come here for the right reasons and list properly and hit their milestones, there's the opportunity to grow, use their stock as currency, and cross-list, over the states.
For sure.
So the site itself is really an opportunity for Canadians to see the companies that are already here, to help those companies who want to come. And as you said, I mean, just people are not even aware of these Israeli
100%.
companies. So
lots of innovation in Israel for sure. Obviously, getting an opportunity to see some of that in Canada would be pretty cool, I think. Sounds like a good platform. So anybody, it's not investment advice, but anybody wants to look at the platform, is there a way to invest, or is it just showing people what's available here now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the public companies, obviously, those individuals can go to the site, and what we've done with the companies is we're posting their press releases. If there's any research, as we move forward, we'll probably have the ticker tape on it and some other variety of things. for companies that are looking to go public and they're raising capital, they're in their final stages, again, we are not a registered entity, but individuals can reach out to us and we'll pass them on to the company if they're interested, in participating in those opportunities. And again, everything's on the website, the investor presentations, press releases, and the opportunity. As I said, we've only got 2 up there now. There'll be another 2 in the next week.
Oh, that's cool.
And we've got a pipeline, that are
So this is a newer initiative.
This week, as I said, we soft launched it about a week and a half ago.
This is great timing then. Yeah.
Well, we think it's great timing, again, not only for some of the challenges that have come on in Israel, but the small cap market. And again, we can talk about mortgages and interest rates, as well, but the small cap market in Canada has been really challenging for the last year and a half with interest rates going up.
For sure.
Smaller companies don't struggle in that environment to go public.
Right.
But now, hopefully, as we see, definitely, the opportunity for interest rates are flattening, hopefully going down in the near term. Companies can now start to plan, and individuals, and that sector does very well in this environment.
Yeah.
And those are the growth companies. Those are the companies that hopefully will be, from an Israel term, the next Waze or Mobileye, or for other companies that people know, the next Amazons, the Googles, etc. They're risky. There's no doubt about that. There's always risk, but they're really interesting companies. And the one thing I'll say, Dan, that in everything we've done out of these companies out of Israel, these are really, really interesting technologies. Not all of them are going to do well. And not all of them should be, some of them that are here shouldn't have all been public companies, but they're really interesting things that are coming out of Israel.
Right.
And we think that will help that ecosystem.
Okay, that's cool. So you said you basically started a week and a half ago. You've got a couple companies, you'll have 4 in the next couple of weeks. Will there eventually be a platform to invest directly, or is it always going to be like, here's what we have, go speak to somebody else about maybe an investment opportunity? You see down the road where you'll be licensed and regulated so that you're helping people weed out maybe the ones to invest in or not?
Yeah, so again, thank you for asking. So absolutely, I mean, we do see, again, it's very important you become a regulated entity and a registered entity to do things properly. Over time, the companies that are not public, those are the ones, again, that we will have the opportunity over time. We'll create what's called an exempt market dealer, or partner with others that will allow people to go to that. And I don't want to say, and they effectively will have our stamp of approval on it. Again, keeping in mind these are smaller companies. All the public companies, again, all that information is out there. Which is great. And we work with these companies because, as you said, many people don't know it's an awareness campaign. And so we're helping them get out there, talk to the retail advisors, talk to the general public, talk to the investment bankers, and let people know that, hey, we're out here, this is a good company, because I think that's so important. That's how people find out about those needles in a haystack, right?
For sure. So, obviously in previous, last 2 or 3 years, everybody's from Israel, from my understanding, was looking at NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. You probably need a market cap of 500, 600, 700 million to even have a dent. So what kind of companies are we talking about here? Like market cap wise, like they're really ground floor opportunities potentially, right?
They are. I mean, now again, when you say ground floor, they're ground floor from a sense of a public entity. These are not startups. I mean, we're looking at companies that all have revenues. Hopefully they're break even, some are even actually making money. And again, it goes back to why would a company go public? That's another story. I mean, you got to get into that's important. Companies should only go public when they see the opportunity, to potentially use their stock as currency to acquire other companies, to grow beyond, to market so that they can penetrate a variety of different communities, particularly the North American community. So I think the market caps we're looking at for these companies are minimum 35, 40, if not 50 million Canadian. But to your point, in the US it's a much higher bar. I mean, it's probably 750 million US for those companies to get any sort of institutional appeal, research. Whereas in Canada, we're a smaller market. And I mean, there are wonderful, amazing companies with valuations of 100, 200, 300 million Canadian that are growing. And as they continue to grow and hit their milestones, these companies can then cross-list, go to NASDAQ, continue to grow there. And as they become aware of this opportunity in Canada, and again, that we're just 100 kilometers away from Buffalo, it's a lot cheaper to go public in Canada. You're paying Canadian dollars.
That's right.
You're not paying the directors and officers' liabilities that you have in the States.
Okay.
So there is an awareness campaign for Canadians, but we're also doing it for Israelis. And I plan on being in Israel in the next couple months, talking to a number of Israeli companies that are considering this.
Oh, that's cool. So your goal now is to just get as many companies as possible onto your platform, eventually become an exempt market dealer so you can maybe help raise funds legally. I guess you're going back, are you going back and forth to Israel a lot? Or are you just starting, or are you planning to?
So I've always gone back a lot. I mean, again, but the goal is for this to be my dream job. I mean, to be in Israel 4, 5, 6 times a year. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm ready to move there, but again, I think that's the idea. The plan is to go in the next few months. Yep. Things have settled down. Flights are a little easier to get, but yeah, to be there regularly. One thing we have talked to a lot of these Israeli companies is that they need boots on the ground here, and that's what myself and my partner are able to do. Yep. But by the same token, we've got a number of individuals that we work with in Israel, because I was born in Israel and I consider myself Israeli, but I'm not there. Yeah. I can't really identify. I don't understand the ecosystem fully. Yeah. So we have people there. We'll go over there to meet those companies. It's so important to shake hands with people and see them in the eye. Zoom only does so much.
For sure.
But the idea is that we'll work with a variety of different individuals over there, all sorts of centers of influence. There are investment bankers there, lawyers, business people, many former government officials who are now looking for jobs in the stock market and so. Yeah, the plan is to be over there often.
Right. So let's backtrack a bit. You mentioned something earlier. You obviously started this a while ago, even though the website's up a week and a half ago, but it's been, I remember you and I went to Israel for hockey in 2021.
Yeah, 2.5
years ago, and I know that you were meeting companies there, so it's been in your head for a while. So why don't we talk briefly about what happened on October 7th and how that maybe have changed?
Yeah, sure.
Your thoughts and maybe companies and people's thoughts in Israel about coming to Canada and not pursuing the dream of the NASDAQ to start. Right?
Yeah, so again, you're absolutely right. I mean, when we went to Israel in November 2021, in addition to playing a couple of great hockey games against the former Soviet stars, which was great, I was in meetings day and night. I mean, things were booming in Israel, and I couldn't. And people were looking to raise capital, but looking to come to Canada to go public. When I came back, I worked with my partner, Mark Goodman, and we continued to meet a lot of people. The challenge was, at that point, things were starting to slow down, and the capital markets here and the small cap market was struggling.
It was tough for the markets during COVID, for sure.
Exactly, and so we were very meticulous. We met everybody. We talked to a lot of people. We've been slow and methodical about this. And I think what's transpired over the last year particularly is, the recognition in Israel, the valuations in Israel, as we alluded to, have come down. That's a little bit to do to the judicial reform and internal politics in Israel, some uncertainty with that, and that will straighten itself out. That's a political situation that will, but that definitely brought the valuations down. In addition to that, the horrific acts of October 7th and the subsequent war, has brought valuations down for a couple of reasons. I mean, people are uncertain. There's some, many of the high-tech CEOs were caught up in the war. I mean, they went to the front lines. They were in Gaza. And then for a short period of time, although it seems already to be bouncing back, venture capital slowed down in Israel. And the interesting thing about venture capital is that it's different from public markets. Venture capital will invest in companies and generally give them a higher valuation, but take a lot more of the equity from the entrepreneur, and they'll allow that individual to eat and pay him or her for an extended period of time. Capital markets are different. The opportunity exists to keep a lot more of your equity, but at the same time, the companies are not prepared to pay quite as high of a valuation. Right. So there has to be that coming together, and I think that's been an awareness in Israel. And here in Canada, what we've seen is obviously, and I'm somewhat outspoken about this, the terrible anti-Semitism that has come to light. There is, the Jewish community now, they'll give charity. This is not charity.
No,
this is about
charity.
this is all about business.
For sure.
So I think that
But
again,
there's gotta be a little bit more push to support homegrown, probably, companies,
I
would
agree,
think, with
yeah.
the anti-Semitism, people kind of sticking with their own tribe per se during this.
yeah, and I think people. I think two things. I think people, who are Zionistic, and also, recognize, that without Israel, we wouldn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
we wouldn't be able to back up our Mercedes into a spot because Mobileye is that,
Yeah.
and we can go on and on of some of the. We'd be lost because Waze, right? So we wouldn't have Waze. So I think people understand the wonderful technology that comes out of Israel,
Yeah.
and so I think you're right. The Jewish community has said, wait a minute, you know what? I know this. Wait a minute, I recognize valuations have come down. I can make money. I can support Israel because I think the valuations were too high before.
For sure. Yeah.
And and again, I think some of the ego and the arrogance out of Israeli companies
Yeah,
has
there's
come
a
down.
lot of that too.
Right.
for sure.
So all that together, and then there's a number of individuals, with strong moral compasses, Jews and non-Jews, who say, wait a minute, I want to be involved.
Right.
So I think, we put it on their website. The time is now.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'll say is that, unfortunately, often one of the only good things that comes out of war is new technologies.
Right.
And there is no doubt that that's coming out of Israel right now. AI-based cybersecurity, all sorts of from everything around blockchain and Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So I think again, Israel. There's going to be a huge boom coming out of Israel once things settle down.
Right.
I also believe that, despite some governments' lack of backbone, some governments,
Some governments.
we won't get into. We can get into that if you want.
It's not.
Not for here, but I
Take
will.
too long.
Yeah, but I would also say, you're seeing some countries that were very, very close to signing peace agreements with Israel,
Yeah.
Arab countries, Sunni countries, that have been very quiet through this. And we know that the moment that there is settling down in Gaza and hopefully in the north, that there's going to be a ton of money that's
Right.
going to flow into Israel.
Right.
So now is the time. Now is the opportunity, and now is the time for me, I believe, that we want to educate Israeli companies about what's great about Canada,
Yeah.
and for the Canadian investors, to have a
To
look
help
at this.
educate.
And next year, we'll have hopefully a prime minister who has a stronger moral compass, and that's the only political throw.
Yeah, okay, all right, I agree with you. So, let's not get into that.
Yeah.
That's great, so started a couple weeks ago, been in the incubator, I guess, for more than a couple years. So is there a plan? Are you working on exempt market dealer? For everybody who doesn't know what that is, you basically need to be registered with the OSC to be able to deal in securities and offer, investment opportunities to people. So is there a plan now? Is it in a process, or is it started? Or are you looking to team up with somebody who has, already has the license? How does that?
So it's a great question. So again, I often say what an exempt market dealer is: a junior broker. I mean, again, you could go to the bigger firms, either the bank-owned firms or many of the independents, the Canacords of the world, Echelon. Those are all brokerage firms that can sell securities to anybody.
The goal is not to join one of them.
No, not at all. So the goal is, we've looked at starting up an exempt market dealer. It's a longer term process. We're in negotiations potentially to buy one.
Okay.
But to your point, I think the other thing is, and I often joke with these smaller companies, it takes a village.
Yeah.
And so we've partnered up in some past deals with other registrants, where again, they've got their network of people and they're able to go through what's called the Know Your Client form, the
For sure, we have
KYC.
to do that in mortgages and private mortgages, and for sure. Yeah.
So all that is part of the game plan. We haven't finalized. I think eventually we will have our own exempt market dealer.
Yeah.
But for the time being, our platform is really just that awareness. We see the other opportunity as well is a merchant bank, and we haven't talked about that yet. But the merchant bank is really finding these companies early on, identifying them, providing them capital, working with them all the way through the public offering, and that would be another part of our platform.
Okay.
And
That's a goal.
that's absolutely a
raise
goal.
funds for a bank and to make investment decisions early enough that there's real good opportunities.
Those are, the 10, 20, 30, 50x
Right,
opportunities because it allows people to get in early.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that as well. And
Okay.
again, those are ideas, those come by, selectively.
Sure,
But,
of course, yeah.
but again, all this will be under a platform. And again, Invest in Israel we see as one part of that.
Okay.
We're really excited about it. I mean, the momentum has been great. I mean, I'm learning about social media.
Okay.
I'm predominantly on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
but we've got Invest in Israel on LinkedIn and slowly getting followers
So
on
everybody
that.
can follow you on LinkedIn. It's Oded Orgil. You're 5 times.
5X Capital
5X
Management
Capital
is my company. But again, there's investinisrael.ca, which is also on LinkedIn. We've got our website up. We will have a newsletter. Again, very simple to start with over the next little bit, which will highlight the companies.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of momentum. It's really exciting.
That's good. That's good.
I'm thrilled.
So where do
about
you
it.
think you're going to take this to exempt market dealer, maybe merchant bank?
Yeah.
Is there going to be opportunities for companies that are not just Israeli companies, or do you feel that this is kind of a niche that you're going to focus on for the next multiple years as you found your dream job, as you say?
Yeah, so I think again we see ourselves over the next 2 to 3 to 5 years. We want to become effectively an investment bank that will focus, on Israeli technologies or Israeli sector. However, we're capitalists, we're business people, and Mark and I have we've got another engagement with an amazing company in the renewable energy infrastructure play, which is again. Hits all the buzzwords right now: renewable energy, AI, data center. It's a data center play. So again, we will focus on the Israeli companies. Yeah. But again, if someone's got a great idea,
you're not going to say no.
We're not going to say no.
Right.
We're not going to say no. We've had conversations with many people also about a fund. And the challenge with that is there are so many people out there who are already doing it very, very well.
Yes.
And there are so many funds out there who are focused on Israel.
Okay.
But
where would their focus be?
Sure.
Like,
so they tend
compared
to
to what you're trying to do, or your long-term goal. What would be Israeli fund, like a current one right now? What are they focusing on?
Yeah, so I would say a couple things are differentiation. Number one is when you're looking at on the capital markets end, you're looking probably for liquidity for the company in as little as 6 months up to maybe 24 months.
Yeah.
So again, Dan, you invest with us at $1 and it's trading. Hopefully a much higher price, could be a little bit lower, but you've got liquidity. Funds tend to be a 5 to 7 year time horizon.
Right.
Okay. Many of them are dealing with more junior companies and allowing them to mature, as I alluded to earlier. They'll fund them all the way up to a number of series and give them. And then they tend, for the most part, to be more M&A transactions where they find a buyer for that technology.
Right.
Nothing, and it's a great, great value proposition. So I think that we found what we believe is a vacuum in the space, that no one is doing this right now. We think that we can be the boots on the ground, for these Israeli companies. Mark and I, between the two of us, have 60 years experience on Bay Street. And again, working with those partners. And again, meshing, it's interesting that I often joke that, Israeli companies have not come to Canada. I'll talk to CEOs from Israel, and they've been to New York 50 times, Dan. They've been to Boston 40 times. They've been to San Jose 35 times. They've even visited Niagara Falls twice. But Toronto's way too far, way too cold. It's just they don't know. They don't know. So there has to be that education on that end. Again, that there's that opportunity. And again, we've talked about it earlier, very strong Jewish community, a business community that loves risk capital.
Well, that's a cool, differentiator. So, in synopsis here, you started, you're down the road, exempt market dealer, maybe work with some non-Israeli companies, but this is your dream, your focus. Time is right, especially with what's going on in Israel, and hopefully Jews around the world can rally around some companies, help them get started. Going back to how we met, still play hockey, and anything going on with Israeli hockey,
so there's again, I'm still trying to play some shitty hockey. I like to say I'm stuck in second gear.
I'm not even in gear. I'm in neutral.
but yeah, I'm playing a couple times a week. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we've got 5 kids. I'm thrilled that 2 of them have played in the Maccabee games, and my daughter and my son, who both have Israeli citizenship, but we're good enough to make the Canadian teams.
Okay.
So that's
well, I'm
cool.
hoping my daughter does in a few years as well.
Yeah, she's she's going to be something. So and then one son is playing university hockey in Niagara University, so I get to be a fat dad and watch him, and that's great. That's good hockey. And then my youngest is still playing, so I'm still kicking around as often as possible. Looking for summer hockey's better than winter because you wear flip flops when you're at the rink.
It's fun.
But yeah, and as far as Israel hockey goes, again, it's a on the good news, they've got a new rink in Israel. If you know where Oded is, just south of Tel Aviv. Again, from a former teammate of ours, Yevgeny Gusin has put that up in a mall. It's his rink.
Oh, it's his rink?
It's his rink. Or well, it's in the mall, so it's his baby. That launched maybe 2 weeks ago. They call it Blue Ice. And so that's another full-size rink in and around the Tel Aviv area. There's another full-size rink at where we played in, it's Moshav Tnuvot, which is about 45 minutes north of Tel Aviv near Netanya, which is called One Ice. And so that's a full-size rink. Obviously, there's the one in Metula, which right now is shut down because of the war and the problems with the north and with Hezbollah. So yeah, the federation has struggled. I mean, a little bit formally with their league, etc. What is going strong is a friend of ours, or someone that you know briefly, Tal Avneri. His league, the IEHL, which is the Israel Elite Hockey League. His summer league is going to be up and running again this summer. He's had it; it grows every year. They brought in some really talented players. They make it a full month-and-a-half event. His website is not up yet, but they're on YouTube. You can catch all the games on YouTube. And you know, his group has brought teams from Israel to do various tours over the last little bit. They played some college teams. They were just here in Toronto maybe a month ago, where they played a college team. I can't recall the name. Out of Hamilton. It was a small Christian school. And so they played there. So it was a combination of some Israeli guys coming here and guys who played on the team. They asked my son to play, you know, he's dual citizenship. And they're leaving for Colorado tomorrow. They're going to be in Colorado playing some college teams over the weekend.
That's good.
And he's looking to grow that. He's considering even a winter league, you know, with that. And the idea is to bring, you know, Jews and non-Jews. I actually just spoke to a referee here in the GTHL, non-Jewish guy who just wants to see if there's hockey in Israel. So hopefully, he's going to be connected with them. So yeah, Israel. I mean, hockey's an alternative sport in Israel, but it continues to grow. And I know long term there are aspirations for a pro team to play.
Remember when we were there a couple of years ago? They were talking about a team in the KHL.
Yeah, look, again, there's 1.5 million Russians in Israel. There's another at least 500,000 to 1 million North Americans. And it's my understanding that they've identified ice, you know, where they would put a rink. And it's, you know, you need a rink that's probably 6,500 people to make it work. You need the sponsorship. But unfortunately, it was the Ukraine war, you know, that slowed that down. And you know, the KHL has lost their Finnish, you know, franchise. There's a team out of Finland.
What's it like? Because you're speaking to people every day, I guess, in Israel. What's it like right now in Israel?
So first of all, it's I'm up at sometimes 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and it's kind of nice. I'm done at 4 in the afternoon. Like, even though Israelis are talking to all hours of the night. I think, you know, interesting look. It's the reality is within Tel Aviv, life is back to normal, and you know, people are out, people are doing different things. There is a definite strain, and people recognize it and live with it day to day. You know, whether it's the fact that there's still 130 somewhat hostages, you know, in Gaza, but business is moving 100%. You know, that's one thing. You know, as an Israeli, as a Zionist, I mean, I believe that, you know, the job has to be finished. And the challenge is, what people don't recognize is, unfortunately, if the job isn't finished, Israel has shrunk, because people are now slowly coming back to the south. They're prepared to go back to the south because hopefully there won't be rockets. Israel is in Gaza. But in the north, there's 100,000 people who have not moved back to their homes. I mean, so, you know, and there's beautiful wineries up there, as you probably know. You know, I've been there many times. So you can't allow the situation to continue. But within the core of Israel, you know, I joke, it's somewhat like, you know, Canada, where you've got Toronto or Wawa, Ontario. They're very different worlds.
Yes,
I mean,
for
and
sure.
and so how does Toronto go? How does Tel Aviv go? Is how Israel goes. I mean, so people are again working, business is going. I mean, as I said, I'm seeing deal flow out of Israel. That's crazy. I mean, wonderful, wonderful companies. You know, some too early for us. We don't want to be involved in. We're talking to some bigger ones who, again, we have to convince that Canada is the right place to be. But there's a lot of opportunities out there, and that's, I mean, the ingenuity and the, you know, the startup nation mentality in Israel has never been stronger.
Right. Strong people, you know.
Stubborn,
strong. We'll just keep going.
Sabras, as we say. Sabras, as we say. You know, prickly on the outside, sweet on the inside.
Right. Okay, so how can our viewers find you again?
Yeah. So yeah. First of all, Dan, thanks very much for having me. This has been a lot of fun. So if anybody wants to, you know, reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn, Oded Orgil. My current, you know, operating company is 5X Capital Management. But with respect to this, is just Google www.investinisrael.ca, and we're also on LinkedIn. We will be getting on other social media over the next little bit as we go beyond soft launching. But we're looking to host events similar to this, whether it's podcasts or the likes, interviewing CEOs as they come here. But yeah, look for us. I mean, I think that this is, you know, as I said, I'm really excited.
That's great.
And I think it's the right time and, you know, raw opportunity for lots of people, hopefully to make lots of money and do the right thing.
That's great. I appreciate that. Keep an eye out for Oded. It sounds like lots and lots of good things coming, you know, in the future, and hopefully we can help, and maybe we'll get you on as the business progresses, and maybe when you get your exempt market dealer, and we'll talk about how things have, you know, changed since you started. Typically businesses evolve, right? So it'll be cool to watch your progress, and hopefully some of our viewers maybe even get involved one day.
Sure. Yeah,
Right.
thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Appreciate it, and thanks for watching.